everyone, and welcome back to HR Talks with Leash, a platform aiming to motivate, inspire, and elevate HR interns, students, graduates, and professionals, helping you to flourish within your careers. Join me on this journey to success as a HR professional, finding her way within the industry and rising to the top. If you're new here, then welcome to the HR Talks with Leash community. Please can you like, comment, subscribe, and also click the notification bell so that you're always notified every single time I post a video. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. So welcome back to episode 2 in the Let's Talk entry-level HR series. And this series is all about bringing entry-level professionals together to talk about experiences and also journeys in our early careers, and also creating a space to help you if you're considering going into HR or if you're in the field already and you just want to know what people like you are doing. So I would like to introduce our second guest, Mathilda. And she currently works as a HR ops specialist at a cybersecurity company and has been in the HR industry for just over 2 years. She graduated from the University of Surrey in 2018 with a degree in law with business. And following this, she's worked in recruitment before moving into HR. And she has since completed her CIPD qualification. And she also says that HR is a dynamic industry to be in. She's enjoyed learning and developing a great deal since she began, and she's currently anticipating what the next 5 years will bring. So thank you so much for joining me today, Mathilda. I'm really happy that you could be on the episode today.
For the warm introduction as well. I know I've already said this to you separately, but I really like what you're doing with the channel, and keep going. It's a great platform for people wanting to go into HR or people already in the industry. So yeah, keep going. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. That's great. So let's just get into the questions. So could you just tell me about why you wanted to go into HR and where did your passion for the profession come from?
I was in sixth form and I was just thinking about what I wanted to do in uni and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life pretty much at that time. I had an interest in law, but I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to do law. So I thought to myself, law seems like a great industry, but what else can I do with a law degree? So I remember just going on Google and just searching what other career can you go into with a law degree. And at the time, HR came up as one of them. So that's when I just started to look into what HR do, what is the purpose of the division, what does the ins and out on a day-to-day, what does that entail? So I started just doing some research then, and I was getting interested the more I started looking into it. And also my aunt as well, she was a HR director at the time, so I had the opportunity to speak to her to get an insight into HR. So all of that together, and especially during uni, I think I would say second year, that's when I realized that all this research I've been doing into HR, I think this is the industry for me.
Right, yeah, and as you said as well, because you kind of was going down the law path, and that was pretty similar with me as well, because I actually was thinking about going to the law, but I decided to go down the psychology route. And just the fact that like you can still kind of pivot your way into like what career you want to go down despite what you've done in like uni. I think that that's great because we've always got options. So
definitely, I would say anyone that's studying at the moment, if you're not necessarily studying a HR degree, you just can think about all the transferable skills that you can take from your current degree and how that can be applied to HR. But once you do some research into what HR do, then you'll be able to start identifying things that can be transferable from your current degree. So don't be daunted by that at all.
So talking about your degree, because you said that you've done a degree in law with business, did your degree give you like the skills and necessities to actually go into the HR field?
Definitely. So doing a law with business degree was very helpful. So my law degree, within that, I had an employment law module and also a contract law module as well. So those two were very helpful. For example, in employment law, I learned things about the protected characteristics in detail. If someone was going to bring a claim to the employment tribunal about a discrimination case, whether that was direct or indirect, unfair dismissal, summary dismissal, those kind of things. And that helps with like the ER side of HR. So that gave me a foundation understanding. And then with my business degree, I had the opportunity to do a HR module as well. So all of that together was just very helpful for me to then, when I started looking for jobs and having that prior understanding of HR.
Yeah, that's great, because with me as well, like when I was doing my psychology degree, I do feel like there was quite a lot of transferable skills that came from my psychology degree that actually helped me when I did like a module in HR in my third year as well. So I feel like it's definitely something where you shouldn't think because I'm doing a degree that's not in HR, that's not going to get me on that path if that's something you want to do in the future.
Depending on what you're learning at the moment at uni, as I mentioned earlier, just have to do some research and figure out what you can transfer. Even if it's something like if you're doing a degree that has to do with a lot of writing and you have to do a lot of essay writing, that can be transferable in terms of your written skills that you can then talk about at a HR interview. So there's a lot of transferable skills, I think, that you can take on as into the HR career.
So before you went into HR, you actually went down the recruitment path. So when did you start like applying for jobs within recruitment? Was that when you were in your final years of uni? Was this after uni?
I wanted to go into HR, ideally would have wanted to graduate and have an HR job, but that didn't quite work out for me. So during my final year of uni, I think about October time, that's when the graduate jobs come up. I started to apply for jobs, and it was so hard trying to juggle third year and also applying for jobs. So that was a struggle. And I just started applying for HR jobs and I wasn't successful. And there wasn't a lot of HR jobs. I understand it's a small division, but there wasn't a lot of HR jobs at the time. I applied for a few, I wasn't successful. And I started to think about the wider HR team. So what else can I do to then end up in HR? So recruitment was one of them. So then I started to apply for recruitment jobs during third year. And luckily I got a job before I graduated, and I went on to do recruitment for a couple of months. And that actually helped because I ended up using that and my degree as skill sets and building up some knowledge on the industry as well to then go into HR.
Cool, because like same with me, I couldn't find any like jobs after graduating. It was very, very hard. Like I applied for so many, but it's just the market's so difficult, and especially HR as well, finding like HR like graduate schemes and like even placements, because I wanted to do a placement for like a sandwich kind of year, but I couldn't even find one of those. It was really hard. So yeah, I think it is definitely important to see how you can enter the field in a different way. And recruitment is definitely where you can build a lot of skills that can help you to get in the space. So definitely agree with that. But it is it's just really hard out there, I guess, isn't it? Just trying to get a job.
Very hard.
Yeah.
And I think with HR as well, why I don't know, it'll be interesting to hear other people's opinions, but why it's for me maybe so hard to get into it. It's just, as I mentioned, it's a small division. Usually, I don't know, it depends on the size of the organization, but HR, there aren't that many HR professionals within a business supporting. So maybe that's the reason, and there's just not that many jobs out there for us. But it would be great to see, like, in the next coming years, as HR becomes more, well, companies are recognizing the importance of HR in the business. Hopefully more graduate jobs and internships will come out of that.
Yeah, definitely. It's very small. Like literally the departments are so small as well. It's kind of just like there's not any space for like new graduates to come in because it's just so saturated already. So yeah, it is difficult. It is definitely difficult. But just going off the fact that you've had experience now within recruitment and I believe HR for the past 2 and a bit years, right? So in terms of your journey, starting in HR, well, recruitment to where you are now, can you just describe like that for us?
Started off in recruitment, and I did that for about 10 months or something. And then after recruitment, I went in to be a HR assistant. And with the HR assistant, it was pretty much like an admin role. So I was doing things like contracts, references, like the usual entry level HR responsibilities. And then I went on to be a HR coordinator. And I think that role was what really challenged me a lot. And it was a great opportunity because I got to get involved in broader things. So for example, minor and complex ER issues. So with disciplinary, supporting with grievances, I wrote a lot of outcome letters. I think that was probably one of my day-to-day. So just writing a lot of outcome letters, following disciplinaries, supporting with employee engagement strategies as well. So I was able to do all of that. And then now I'm a HR ops specialist. So that is just focusing on the employee experience. And I think this role I'm currently doing, so my previous roles, I was just focusing on the UK, whereas now I focus on, I support with employees within the EMEA, and I don't really deal with employees within the UK. So that is how my role has grown. And yeah, it will be interesting to see what I would tap into next. But it's been an interesting journey so far.
So you've mentioned that you are dealing with employees within EMEA, RA, and is that different to kind of dealing with employees in the UK? Like how is the interactions?
Different. It's interesting because that wasn't something that I had experience with prior experience. So going into the role, and I'm still learning because I've been in the role for about just over 3 months now. So I'm definitely still learning, but dealing with employees, you get to understand how different countries operate, the employment law in different countries, and it's just interesting, a learning experience. And sometimes when something changes in another country, you actually have to go out of your way to do the research and understand what the changes are, and potentially join in webinars and things like that. Whereas in the UK, if there was a change, like if there was an employment law change or a new case or something like that, you hear the discussions around you. You might go to people management website and see that. So I think it's easier when you deal with people in the UK, because on a day-to-day, you can have an understanding of that and get that understanding and knowledge. But when you're dealing with other people, supporting people within a EMEA, you actually have to go out of your way to keep looking for information, researching, getting updates. So it's interesting so far.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. I feel like, you know, being able to collaborate with different countries, apart from the UK, is definitely something that's great to have as like a skill and stuff early in your career as well, which is, yeah, that's great. And I know as well that you did your CIPD qualification, and you did that alongside working. So how was that experience? Because I mean, some people, myself included, I did a master's and didn't do it alongside work. So how was that for you?
I'm really happy that I did it that way. I remember prior to getting into HR, I was itching to do it before I even got into the industry. And I just said, you know what, let me just take my time and get into the industry, then do it. I preferred doing it that way because it was just a lot easier for me, because working and just having an understanding of what HR entails on a day-to-day, and then going home and just doing my essays and listening to my tutor, it was just a lot better. And what I was able to do as well is, when I learned something from my class, I would just go to my manager and say, oh, I've learned this. Is it something that I can actually do in practice? And she was so open to me learning and developing. So she gave me a lot of those opportunities as well. And also doing a law with business degree, I was able to get some of my notes from my degree and apply them to CIPD. So it all worked well for me, but it was definitely hard having that time. I think for me, it was the time rather than the actual work. That was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I think that, to be honest, I actually would have preferred to do my CIPD alongside working, just because I know that like when you're doing the qualification, you can literally, as you say, apply certain things to like what you're doing. I mean, I think the other way as well, it's obviously totally fine to do it that way as well. So if you do a master's and you know, then go into work, but I guess it's just what suits you. So I think for those watching, like if you know you want to do the CIPD qualification alongside work, and if that is better for you practically, then I would definitely go for it. But obviously it might not be, maybe just studying it full time might be. So I guess it depends on the individual.
I agree. I think if anyone that does it before actually getting into the industry, my advice would be to just keep your notes, because HR is an industry where, to really understand the role and what we do. You need to do it on a day-to-day, like you need to get a job in HR and work in the industry. So keep your notes, and when you get your first HR job, then refer back to your notes, see what you've learned, see what you can apply to your job, rather than just do the degree, start the job, and just forget about all you've studied. So definitely keep your notes, and when you get your first job, refer back to them, because that would be very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So just because I know that you, as you said, you've had different roles now from recruitment into HR. So within that time period, obviously COVID happened. And was you, at the time when COVID started, was you already in a role, or was you trying to find a new role? What was your position in at that time?
Graduated in 2018, and then I got my recruitment job then. And my first HR job was in 2019. This was prior to COVID. So I entered the industry prior to COVID and was able to get a bit of experience. But my recent job that I started a couple months ago, that was during COVID. And I actually preferred interviewing during COVID than before, just because it will be interesting to hear your perspective as well, and how you found things. Just because for me, doing things virtually and meeting people that way, it was all right, because usually when you do an interview in person, you have to think about your train journey to London, wherever location you are at, and you have to sit in the waiting room before you go into the interview, and just all that process is just builds up the nerves. And by the time you get through with the interview, it's just like, okay, like what's going on now? But whereas when you do things virtually, you can just read all your notes prior to the call, log on after the call, put your laptop down, and just relax. So I found things better that way, and it was all right. It was not too bad. What about you?
I think when it came to the interviewing process, I agree with you, because I feel like it was just easier for me to, I was literally reading notes and stuff beforehand. And as you said, literally I could just open up my laptop, I'm sitting down, I'm ready. Once it's done, I'm finished. And I did actually like that process. And I also just liked the fact that, I was still able to get myself across within my interview for my first job within HR, and I think it was a pretty good interview still, even though it was virtual, which is great. But I would say that I just, in terms of like starting and onboarding virtually and everything like that, I feel like I would have preferred to have started like my first HR kind of job in the office, just because I personally felt like it'd be nice to have those like connections with people, like when you're like learning how to do like the position for the first time. So yeah, my situation in that sense is a bit different, because this was my first job and it's the pandemic, and I feel like the support that I could have had being in the office and being able to just turn around to my colleague and be like, oh, can you help me with this, instead of having to message them and wait for a response, and sometimes waiting forever, and you're just like, well, I need someone to answer me right now, and what can you do? That for me, that's when it was kind of like, oh, it'd have been nice if I started in the office. But in terms of interview processes and everything like that, I was fine with it being virtual. Like, yeah, so I agree with that.
I do get what you say in terms of obviously when you've gotten the job and when you're doing your onboarding, because I can't imagine my first HR job doing everything virtually. I think I would have been a bit nervous. And I think also with learning and development, even for the stage I am now, I think it is definitely very important for people to still go back to the office, whether that's hybrid, whatever dynamic companies decide to choose. I think just having that option for people to still come into the office and interact with their colleagues, just that social aspect as well. And I do agree with you when you mentioned if you have a question, because sometimes if I have a question, I then have to go on Teams and message someone. But if you're in the office,
you can just
go to your manager's office, or go to, I don't know, to speak to your colleague by turning around. So that, I do miss that aspect, and I can't wait to just have that. But yeah, I do agree. I'm still a homebody, so I do like to do my work at home sometimes, but some flexibility would be good, because for learning and development, it's important.
No, I get that 100%, because like I love working from home. Don't get me wrong, I really like working from home. I feel like in the first stages though, because I was virtual from September 2020 all the way to like April, and I never went into the office really at all, because it was still in like lockdowns and everything. And for me, those first few months was a bit difficult, just as I said, when it came to asking questions and just like not being able to quickly get responses like you would in the office. But then over time, obviously I got comfortable and used to things. And don't get me wrong, my colleagues were great because, you know, I could call them and we had like meetings and stuff like that for me to like learn things, so that even though it wasn't office based, it was still good. But I feel like it would have been nice to have that connection early on. But yeah, I love work. I absolutely love working from home. I feel like if I was to go in the office full time, that would be a bit much for me. It's weird because I've never actually been in the office full time, like 5 days a week before. Like literally it's been a few days here and there. So, but I guess this is kind of like the new normal now, in terms of working. So yeah.
Had the opportunity to see any of your colleagues yet at all?
Oh yeah. So when I first started, I know I said I was completely virtual, but I think I went in like once or twice within that period. So I did see like a few of like my colleagues in the office that I'm based at. But it's a bit weird because my team, we're based in all different parts of the UK. So I actually only met my the person that I work with very closely, so another HR administrator, about, I would say 5 months ago, for the first time. And I've only seen her twice, and I've been working at my company in person. I've been working at my company for now a year and a bit. So it's really weird. My manager, she also works like in, I think she works in London. I've only seen her in person about 3 times or 4 times. But I think it would have been like that anyway, just because we work in different offices across the UK.
Are you missing out on much?
Yeah. So it's not like, in that sense, I'm not really missing out much, but I guess they would have been able to travel more to the offices and stuff if we weren't in COVID, but it still wouldn't have been like every day seeing everyone. So yeah. So yeah, in terms of your current role at the moment, could you describe what like a typical day looks like and like what the tasks involve in what you're doing?
Oh, I would say what I currently do is there's a lot of reporting to do, and just being that first line of support for all the employees within EMEA.
Mhm.
In terms of my area. So we have area splits between the HR ops specialist. So I have certain areas under my remit. So I just deal with supporting them during the onboarding as well. So I help out during the onboarding, and I create and update policies as well. So that's something that's quite interesting. Right now, there's a lot of project work because within some of the countries in EMEA, there are changes. For example, with the UAE, they're going through a whole change in a lot of things. So I'm having to deal with that. So I would say right now, I'm just been focusing on a lot of project work and just policies as well, just dealing with some policies and updating. But that has been interesting. I do definitely want to get involved in a lot more things, and because I was in a completely different industry. I'm in the cybersecurity industry right now, and I was in a completely different industry before. So there's a lot of other things that I want to get involved in. I'm looking forward to do so.
So in terms of you working in different industries, how is it like, because obviously you working in the cybersecurity industry now, the last industry you worked in, what industry was that?
Retail industry.
Retail industry, right? So is there like any like kind of major differences in terms of the way that like HR kind of works, would you say, or is it quite similar anyway, even though it's just different industries?
Right now, there's a lot more focus on, I don't know, just the company or the industry, a lot more focus on learning,
Mhm.
because we partner with a lot of external learning companies, and there is so many learning opportunities available for all employees that is just great to see. And there's a lot more structure as well. Whereas the retail industry, I don't know if it's because of budget or whatever the case is, but there's a lot more structure within the cybersecurity industry from what I've seen.
Mhm.
And also, what I've noticed the most is with retail, we had a lot of ER cases compared to the industry I'm in right now.
Mhm.
Maybe it's because when you're dealing with retail and retail staff, a lot of them are uni students or people who just see retail as, okay, I just need some quick money and I'll probably get out of here in the next 6 months, a year, or something like that. Whereas in the industry now, you get professionals who are established in their career and they've gotten their degree or apprenticeships or whatever they need to get their job. So they're a lot more established. So I think maybe dealing with people at different aspects of their life has changed with the employment relations. So that has been interesting to see.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting, actually, because for me, I've only worked in one industry so far, so in the software kind of tech industry. So I think in future it'd be nice to kind of work in a different industry just to see how like things are like handled differently. Because yeah, as you said, that makes sense, because yeah, retail is like a lot of like young people who are just kind of doing a part-time job like alongside uni and stuff like that. So yeah, that's very interesting, very interesting.
Don't show up to their shifts, and you deal with a lot of AWOL, so people
Yeah.
that just decide not to turn up. Whereas now I can't imagine drafting an AWOL letter to anyone. So because people will communicate. So
Yeah.
it's just, I think that's just the difference, probably dealing with ER and just minor things like attendance and AWOLs and those bits, unauthorized absences and all things of those nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in where I'm working at the moment, I feel like I haven't really had to deal with that many. Like obviously there's a few, but it's not like on that kind of scale that I guess it would be in retail. Well, yeah, that's
People as well in terms of pay. So in retail, you probably get paid per hour, whereas people rely on their paycheck more.
yeah,
When you're
exactly.
working,
Yeah,
you have responsibilities, whether
yeah.
it's children or a house or a partner, whatever the case is, you have more responsibilities. So they probably would rethink what they're doing before actually going ahead and doing it more. So.
And in terms of the benefits, like in retail, would you say like they're less so than like in the industry that you're in now?
In the industry I'm in now compared to before. So in retail industry, there wasn't that much benefit
Yeah.
whilst I was there. Actually, there wasn't that much, and I think now there's a lot more. There's a lot more benefits and a lot more things that you can just get involved in. And because one thing I noticed, just to add as well, is with retail there was a smaller team,
Mm-hmm.
whereas now um, I have a much wider team and it's split. So we have a benefits team, a comp team, a learning team. There's just a recruitment team. Whereas then in my previous company, we had such a small HR function. And in the wider HR team, the only thing that we had was there was a learning and development team and a recruitment team.
Mm-hmm.
And then the HR team, we were pretty much a generalist in that aspect. So it's been interesting to see the different approaches to HR in the two different industries.
So would you say as well that in the retail industry, when you were doing HR, is there more of a like more possibility to like impact on change and like more to kind of like I would say lead on compared to being in a bigger industry? Because obviously when you're in a bigger industry, and as you said, like there's different departments and things, you're not necessarily having to focus on everything. It's just kind of one area. So what would you say?
I don't know, that's a bit of a tricky question. I would say possibly, but it really depends on who's at the top,
Right.
because you can't make, as a HR division, you can have so many ideas. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to improve employee engagement from this to that level. You can have so many ideas on what you want to do to add value to an organization. But if the budget isn't there, if the people at the top aren't dedicated or aren't convinced or have other priorities, because HR is not necessarily a money making division. You might have the sales team who are the one bringing the cash in and doing all of this, and you can actually see the monetary value that they add into the business. Whereas HR, that might not necessarily be the first thing that you might see. So it can be difficult to convince those at the top. So it really depends on the leadership team at an organization or the people at the executive level, board level, etc.,
Mhm.
and what their priorities are before you can even, because you can have a small company that might not necessarily have that, and you can have a large company that has that, or the other way around. So
That's
it
true.
really depends on that. And when you're joining a company, it would be really good to just do a lot of research. If that's something you care about and you want to add value, it's really good to do some research into the people at the top, the exec board, ask questions in your interview, and just get an understanding of what that looks like.
Mhm. So in terms of like goals for the future, because I know you said that you're kind of looking on what the next 5 years will look like. Have you got any specific goals? Do you kind of know where you might want to be in the future?
I've just started my role, so I'm just trying to learn as much. And as I said, this is my first role dealing with other employees outside of the UK. So I have a lot to learn. But what I would want to definitely get an understanding of is things like succession planning, benchmarking, talent mapping, dealing with managers closely, so coaching and just doing all those aspects and kind of just leaning more towards a BP, an HR BP. But I would say from now, what I would see myself, the next role would be more like a senior role. So where there's like a senior HR coordinator or a senior HR ops specialist. And then after that, then I would want to be a HR BP. If I can branch off and be an HR BP straight, then that would be amazing. But I'll see how that looks like. But I'd say within the next 6 years, I definitely want to be a HR BP.
Okay, that's great. And in terms,
I'm just throwing the question to you.
oh, you want okay, next 5 years for me. I would say, so right now, because I'm a people support HR administrator, and I feel like I do want to kind of take more of a like advisory role within HR, probably my next role. So maybe like a HR advisor, or maybe even like a HR coordinator or something like that. For me, I'm not even sure right now because I feel like I want to possibly go into like a specialized area, so like maybe learning and development in the future. But I mean, HRBP was also something that like, I wanted to kind of get towards. So I think at the moment, as you said, just trying to understand and learn different kind of aspects first. Then once I do that, branch out, hopefully become a bit more senior, and yeah, see where it takes me. We'll see.
So much to learn, so
Yeah,
take your time and just take it in each step of the way.
yeah, exactly. There is so much to learn, and there's so many different avenues you can go down. Like I feel like I don't even know every single part of like the different parts in HR yet. And you never know, if I learn something new, like even like with compensation and benefits and stuff like that, like maybe that might have been of interest in me and I want to go down that like path. I just don't know, but I guess we're young and there's just so much opportunity out there, so we just got to go with what we think's right and take every opportunity we can, I guess.
And avenues, to be honest, that you can go into. As you said, there is L&D, there is benefits, compensation. You can even be an onboarding specialist as well if that's what you want to focus on. So there's just so many things that you can get involved in. So don't just think that you could go into ER, you can specialize in just being an employment relations manager specialist or something of that nature. There's so many different aspects. So just do your research. You can even be a journalist, so doing everything from recruitment to when the offboarding, so when someone leaves an organization. There's so many things to tap into. So definitely do some research out there to anyone listening.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any like further advice just for any like students currently? Don't even have to be HR students, but like anyone thinking about possibly going into HR after they've graduated?
Don't give up. I know we've both spoken, and me and Alicia have spoken about how hard it is sometimes to get into the industry, but just don't give up. Keep researching about the industry, because one thing is that I would say is you need to know what the day-to-day entails, and because that would come across in your interview. You'll be confident about what you're talking about, so really do some research into it. There are YouTube videos out there like Alicia's or other YouTube channels that you can watch to help you gain that insight as well. And just carry on applying. Think about the different avenues that we've spoken about. You can go into a more specialist area, or you can branch out and do a more broader aspect of HR. But there's so many things to tap into. Don't restrict yourself. And I'll just say, yeah, just don't give up. I know that's so cliche to say, but the right thing would come to you. And one thing I've actually learned as well is sometimes when you do an interview and some people and some companies say, oh, we found someone with more experience. I recently told someone else this, that if don't be down about those kind of feedback, because what that company is saying is that they don't have the resources and time to train and support you.
Yeah,
If they want that, then you how would you feel coming into that when they don't have the structure in place to actually help you? You're new at your role, you want to learn. So you want a company that really sees that value in you and have the time and patience to train you and support you. So don't take those feedback as a negative. And I know that's easy to say but hard to actually live in.
yeah, yeah.
But just flip it around and see the positive side of things.
That's actually great advice. So yeah, thanks for that, Mathilda.
It's honestly like at the moment you don't think about it, and then later on in your career, just like you wouldn't have had the resources to support me anyway. So
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, that is so true. So true. Okay, so my final question for you is, can you tell me one word to describe your journey from a student to your role now?
growing. So from when I graduated in 2018 till now, I've grown so much in my understanding of the field and being able to tap into different aspects of HR and just learning. I've learned so much and I've grown so much, and I can see myself. I know we talked about where I see myself in the next 5 to 6 years, and I see myself carrying on developing, and potentially when I get into a more senior role doing my level 7, and just really trying to learn as much as I can, and take each opportunity that I can, and not always just sticking to my JD, and just trying to find other things that I can do and add value into in my role, and the wider team. So yeah, just I would say growing, and it keeps growing.
Thank you so much, Mathilda, for giving all this great advice, dropping so many gems. Like literally, I think that the viewers are gonna absolutely love this. And yeah, I really enjoyed talking with you and having this conversation. I feel like it's so important for us to be open to people and just say, like, you know, what's happening within our experience, because I don't feel like there's a lot of this out there at the moment. And you know, I mean, I know when I was in studying and trying to get into HR, I didn't see anyone really doing anything kind of like this, like where I could just relate. So thank you so much for everything.
And as you said, like there's not a lot of people doing like what you're doing at the moment in the UK, because I remember when I was even a student and I was thinking about, okay, I need to see what a day in the life looks like in the UK. Like, can someone please put a video? And although I didn't take that courage to do it myself, I was still looking for that resource out there.
Yeah.
And I remember when I searched it up, it was just mainly people in the US that were
Yes, yeah,
really
that's
doing, yeah, in the
all I
US.
could
When you
see.
search up day in the life or what does HR entail, all of that stuff, a lot of people in the US are putting out content. But in the UK, we don't have much of that support, and there are a lot of people in the industry. So it's really good, this series that you're doing as well, and I think it would help people venture into their career.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for watching today's video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and also just click the notification bell, because if I post anything, then you'll be able to see it straight away. Mathilda, have you got like LinkedIn or anything? Like, can anyone reach out to you on anything if they had any questions?
Yeah. Is I'll provide you with my email, and then you can just put my email in your description box. So if anyone has any questions, you can put me an email. I do have LinkedIn as well, which I'll share. So you can feel free to connect with me if you want to.
Great. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you in my next video.